Hey there guys, in this video we're going to be going back to Pedarge and doing another rank 1. This time we're going to be leaving out some of the units that I've been recycling. Like we're not going to use Elena, we're not going to use Melissa, we're not going to use Richt, etc. So let's get in here and get a rank 1 clear. So this time we're going to be using Malphasy for the leader skill. It's only going to be a 500%. We don't have Melissa, we don't have Elena, but it's going to be totally fine. We're going to use Abigail to tank, we're going to use Sylvie for morale fill and overall support, Ibarra to do most of the damage, and then Nora and Dwayne to help out with DPS as well. So here's the clear we're going to do. Turn chart will be in the comments. As usual, I'll show the gear at the end, but let's get in here and give it a go. So this should be a very, very smooth clear. Again, we don't need to worry about variance and all that kind of stuff, which is my favorite way to do a fight. You know, I really hate doing a clear that relies on a high variance roll or something, and this clear should be very smooth to get it done. Anyway, so we're going to use Malphasy too. I should have started in the shift form, but it doesn't really matter. Would have shift on turn 1. But in the Brave shift form, Malphasy is going to do her field on turn 1. We're going to go ahead and do In Aroga to imbue the party. We're going to do Bolting Strike twice. Notice we're not using her cooldowns and stuff yet because we're going to save those for later so the durations line up properly. Nora can just do Living for 2 for the morale fill and then triple bolting. Nora honestly doesn't have much to do here except for just like deal some damage. We're going to use Blood Shield and then double bolting on Dwayne for the morale fill. We're going to use Ibarra to do Wish, Mirage, and we can do Bar Dark Chill or you can hit the boss again. It doesn't really matter. Sylvie in the base form is going to do Burgeoning Defense, Compassionate, and then Vines. And then Abigail is going to do Cover. We're going to do Contingency. And we're going to do Enemy Analysis to perfect dispel the boss's buffs away. Or at least the attack and magic buff. It's going to Libra the boss, you know, whatever. There we go. Okay, so, you know, as you know, Abigail is an absolutely amazing tank. So we're going to have no problems with survival in this clear. That said, Abigail's not doing a whole lot except for tanking, but, you know, she tanks really, really well. We didn't even do her LB yet, and she took, like, you know, 100 damage per hit. But there we go. Okay, Abigail, I guess Abigail is doing more stuff. Abigail is going to also be our primary breaker. So 87 breaks with Abigail. Let's go ahead and do those. We're going to cover again and then do both of the breaks on Abigail. This turn, Dwayne and Nora will do their LB for a little bit of damage, but first, Malphasy is now going to do As the Crow Flies. We're going to do both the killers, so Demon and Avian, and we're going to do Skilled Scavengers, just a setup turn for Malphasy. Ibarra in the base form is going to do double bolting, and then we're going to do her Demon Killer buff, because her Demon Killer is slightly better AoE than the rest of the units. And then we're going to use Sylvie to just Vines, Petals, to fill the morale gauge. This is, again, mostly just a setup turn, even though we are doing LBs with Dwayne and Nora. As you can see, the damage is pretty terrible. The boss has buffs, we have no morale, etc. Morale is certainly a little bit harder if you're not using Melissa. Like, Melissa is a really, really big deal for morale gain, and not using her makes it harder, but as you're going to see, makes it still totally doable. Not really going to be a problem. Okay, so now turn 3, we will go ahead and start getting set up. We're going to do like a baby burst on turn 4, but the biggest burst is going to be on turn 6 and turn 9. So we're not going to SLB Dwayne and Nora. We're going to wait on their SLB until later to line up the bursting better with the boss's buffs. So now we're going to go ahead and do the SLB of Abigail, though, just for the mitigation. Sylvie is going to, again, just Vines and Petals. So Vines, Petals, because those do fill the morale gauge. Ibarra is going to just triple bolting in the base form. Again, we're just waiting for now. We're not really worried about damage yet. We're going to use Malphasy to do double bolting. Then we're going to do Aerial. And then we're going to do Dreams of Flying. That's going to be her focus. Nora on this turn can just quad bolting. Not really anything else to do. And then Dwayne can just use his Atonement for a little bit of damage. The boss doesn't have a defense buff this turn, so this is convenient. So we're not going to do a ton of damage right here, but it's going to do a little bit. If we push the 75 threshold, it's totally fine. It's very unlikely for you to do that, but if you do, it's totally cool. Our provokers currently, by the way, are Sylvie and Malphasy. They are both provoking with full evasion. Thankfully, Malphasy can gear for passive provoke and full evasion without losing any damage because, you know, it's her clash, all the killers line up, etc., etc. So turn 4, we're going to, again, do a little bit of damage. We're still not doing much damage yet. You know, the big damage is going to be on turn 5. And again, if we push the 75 threshold, it's fine. If we don't push it, it's also fine. So we're going to now use the SLB of Dwayne and Nora. We're going to have Abigail, because the boss did rebuff this turn. You really want to get rid of those attack and magic buffs when possible. If you can't, it's okay, but if you can, you want to. So we're going to S-drone type to perfect dispel the boss, and then we're going to just break again. Break and break. And the reason we're breaking so often is it does fill the morale gauge. You see, that's 200 morale per cast. There you go. So we're going to shifted LB Malphasy and base form LB Ibarra as we're getting set up to burst on turn 6. So we're going to go ahead and first use the LB and the shift form of Sylvie, and that is a 400% stat buff, so we don't got to worry about the morale buffs. And let's go ahead and deal a little bit of damage here with Malphasy and Ibarra. Not much, and again, if we push the threshold, we did, it's fine. All that's going to happen is Sylvie will be ejected for a turn, and then the follow-up single targets will go on Malphasy, who is also provoking. As you see, Malphasy is our secondary provoker with evasion. So threshold, if you do push it, great. If you don't push it, it is also okay. Either way does not matter. Okay, so now on turn 5, we're going to again just continue getting set up. You know, our ejected unit has already come back, so there we go. So we're going to just refresh cover and break just for the morale gain with Abigail. We're going to use Sylvie. We're going to go ahead and defense for the multi-stack Mirage. We're going to Demon Killer on Ibarra, so perfect Demon on Ibarra. And then we're going to do Cheerful, again, just for the morale fill. Ibarra in the shift form will do Bolting Strike and her cooldown. So bolting, and then cooldown. Malphasy is now stuck in the base form, but that's okay. So we're going to now do double bolting. We're going to do In Aroga to refresh the amplify on the party. And then we're going to do Fleet Wing. That's going to be her 150 self-amplify. Nora is going to get ready for bursting with a quad Bolting Strike. Again, Nora doesn't have much of a kit here. And then Dwayne can do triple bolting just to fill his LB gauge, etc. So let's go ahead and chain this up, get this ready. If you didn't push the threshold the previous turn, this turn would absolutely push it. But there we go. So now you're going to either push the 75 threshold, in which case, again, Sylvie gets ejected, Malphasy follow-up provokes, or you pushed it last turn, and there you go. The boss has a bunch of attacks. We're using Abigail. The damage is completely irrelevant. We got a lot of Mirage from Sylvie, so, you know, we are handling all the mechanics. So now turn 6, we're going to do our first burst. This is not going to be our biggest burst. We're saving the huge burst for phase 2, or below 50%. This is going to be a small burst. Let's go ahead and do, again, the SLB for Abigail just for the mitigations. Sylvie needs to refresh all the buffs, so we're going to go to the base form, and we're going to do Compassionate, Vines, and Petals. And the reason we delayed our big killers and all in phase 1 until turn 2 is because they're still active on turn 6 because we did that. So now, Dwayne and Nora will do their LB. Malphasy will do the base form LB. It's not as good as the shift form, but, you know, what are you going to do? And then we're going to shifted LB Ibarra. So this will absolutely push that 50% threshold at this point. It is going to HP lock. We're losing a lot of damage being wasted to the HP lock, but that's okay. We did 2.6 damage cap done, but like I said, the big, huge burst is coming on turn 9. Turn 9, we're going to do like 3 to 4 billion. We did lose both our provokers at this point, but we are covering with Malphasy. I'm sorry, we're covering with Abigail. Even if other people get targeted, we've still got lots of Mirage left over from Sylvie. We've still got a lot of good stuff. Now, the boss did hugely fill his morale gauge that turn, so we're going to be a little bit behind on morale for a turn or two just because we don't have Melissa, but it's going to be fine. Now, the boss did reapply all the buffs, so we're going to go ahead and once again perfect dispel them with Abigail. Enemy analysis to perfect dispel. We're going to contingency again to put up Mirage for the party, and then bar Pharagia, but I think we're going to actually have to wait on that. Let's go ahead and SLB with both of our setup units. We're in the base form with whatever your name is, Malphasia at this point. So now we're going to do Strong Tailwind. That's going to be the 100 Amplify on turn 9 by casting it here. We're going to do As the Crow Flies for the big Imperil. We're going to do En Aroga. That way, if we're still here on turn 10, the Imbue will still be there. And then just Bolting Strike. To seal the boss, you got to whoops. You got to always deal the proper elemental damage every turn. So Strong Tailwinds, As the Crow Flies, En Aroga, and then hit the boss with wind damage to seal him. Ibarra on this turn is going to do the base form LB. Now you'll notice it's not quite ready, so we're going to use Abigail to do this, and we're going to use Sylvie to shift here and triple Clever. That will fill the LB up all the way. So there we go, triple Clever, and that's going to fill a bunch of LB gauge, and that'll let Ibarra do the base form LB. Don't worry about chaining it. It's not really for damage. That's just for the setup, for the 40% Katana Imperil and the self-killers and all that. Okay, so here we go. Some more attacks, no big deal. You know what? I'm noticing on turn 5 I did Demon Killer on Ibarra. I shouldn't have done that. We should have done that on Dwayne. I'm going to change my turn chart. Would have been a little bit more damage because I forgot that Ibarra has her own 250 Demon Killer. So that was kind of a waste. But whatever. You know, for the turn chart, it'll say on turn 5, give Dwayne the single target killer. Anyway, turn 8. So we are going to now use Abigail to LB because we're not going to SLB next turn and we don't want those mitigations to fade. So we'll just use the regular LB on this turn. We're also going to use Sylvie to do the shifted LB this turn. Notice the morale gauge is, again, kind of a problem because we're not using our good units, but that's okay. So we're going to Arcane Supplementation with Dwayne, and then double Bolting as we get ready for next turn. Nora will quad, will triple Bolting, and we will Magnus to get ready for next turn. You know what we're actually going to do, Nora? We're going to instead do Living for 2 for the morale fill, double Bolting, and Magnus. And let me change my thing. 1 second. Let me change my turn chart for you guys so you can get it nice and ready to go. Let me actually change one more thing on my turn chart. There we go. That way, because, you know, the morale is a little bit of a problem if you're not using Melissa, but that's okay. So we're going to shift our Malphasia, whose shift is ready to go again. And we're going to get setting up for next turn big burst. So we're going to do both the big killers. We're going to do skilled, and we're going to do dream for the focus. And then Ibarra on turn 8. What are we doing on turn 8? We're going to shift here and do double Bolting and then the cooldown. Also, as far as Mirage goes, the Arcane Supplementation from Dwayne is giving us the Mirage. So here we go, a little bit of damage. You know, you don't want to push the 25 threshold on this turn, but again, it's virtually impossible to do it with the team we're doing. So there we go. So our morale is nice and topped back off for the big burst. Now it is going to be turn 9. Turn 9 is going to be the absolute burst of this party. We're going to be doing lots of damage. We're going to be doing the chain cap score. We might even kill the boss on this turn. But if we don't kill the boss, it's totally fine. Totally fine if we don't kill the boss. Okay, let's do our maximum fully powered burst. We have all the buffs possible. We have 100 Amplify, all the killers. We've got the Arcane Supplementation buff from Dwayne. We've got the modifier buff from Nora, the modifier buff from Sylvie. We are just all in for damage. Malphasia's shift form is back ready to go. Ibarra is fully powered up. And we're going to use Sylvie to just jump in here with Bolting Strike. That way we can get the chain count score. Because we're only going to get 91 chain from the units. So Sylvie just tossing in some Bolting Strikes will push us over 100 count chain. So we're not going to use Abigail yet. What we're going to do with Abigail is we're going to do after the LBs. We're going to Omni cover for this turn and then double Pharagia. Because it's possible we kill the boss, but it's possible we don't. If we don't kill the boss, by using Omni cover and then Pharagia, we're going to fill the party's LB, Omni cover, and then get ejected. And while ejected, we're still going to be Omni covering with Abigail. And if we don't have Abigail ejected, if the boss picks someone else, well, then Abigail's still here Omni covering regardless. So this way, even if we don't kill the boss this turn, we're going to be fine. So we're going to do this, and then we can use Abigail to fill the LB gauge and all that. And looks like we did kill the boss, so we don't even have to worry about the Omni cover. But again, if you don't kill him, finish him off on turn 10. And then 4.8 billion damage on the burst turn. 4.8 billion. Billion. Yeah. So, large amounts of damage done, even though we don't have Elena's leader skill. And that is the power of setting up all the modifiers with the whole party. Like Dwayne and Nora, you know, get kind of like a bad reputation because their damage per turn is not super great. But Dwayne and Nora are extremely good at bursting. Yeah, Dwayne and Nora, the problem is Dwayne and Nora have a lot of dead turns where they just don't do any damage whatsoever. But when they unleash their burst, it's pretty strong. It's really strong. On the other hand, someone like Ibarra or Malphase are doing a lot more burst more often. So across a 10-turn fight, you'll have like Ibarra doing 4.2 billion damage. Although Ibarra's burst damage was not quite as high as, you know, like Dwayne or something. Anyway, there is the damage breakdown. You know, like I said, Dwayne and Nora only really did damage twice in the fight. So over the course of 2 turns, they did about, you know, 2.3 billion damage. Malphase's problem with this fight is she is using a lot of the actions to buff the party. Like turns, I'm looking at my turn chart, turn 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8 are literally all buffing turns for Malphase. She is doing like a lot of buffing here. All the wind support, all the killers, all the field. She's doing, you know, focus and all. So she only really did damage 3 times in the fight. Turn 4, 9, and 6. So Malphase isn't properly represented here. And Ibarra, on the other hand, if you look at the turn chart, Ibarra is doing damage on turn 4, 6, 7, 9, 10 if you count that. And then we're also chaining, just pure chain damage on turn 3, 5, and 8 with Ibarra. So Ibarra is really cheating the numbers here, but she's still really good regardless. Anyway, there was the clear. I'm already done my farming. Don't want any more red pearls. I've got over 100. So let me show you the turn chart. Well, the turn chart will be in the comments. I'm going to show you the gear. Okay, so here's the party. So unit swaps. Abigail. If you don't have Abigail, bring your best tank. Abigail makes the tanking completely irrelevant. Now, I will say Abigail did feel a decent chunk of morale gain. Abigail also did things like Perfect Dispel. Abigail also did things like the Breaking. Now, you could get Perfect Dispel plus tanking from someone like Ash. If you give Ash a Blizzard Orb, she'll counter a Perfect Dispel. That'll handle that. Ash can't break, though. So that's another thing. You could also bring something like Cecil, and then you'd get a field as well. You know, LB damage field, even more damage. That said, Cecil cannot do things like break. Actually, Cecil can't break Spirit or Defense, but Cecil can break Attack and Magic. But he can't Perfect Dispel. So anyway, Abigail's not required. And of course, if you have Elena, bring Elena. Elena's a better leader skill, more damage. Tank's just fine here. There you go. Sylvie is basically for the morale fill. It's really all she did is fill the morale gauge. Also immunity buffs. A good swap for Sylvie is Melissa. Melissa will be way better here just because Melissa is so much better at filling the morale gauge over Sylvie. But either of them are totally fine. And as far as damage dealers, Malphase on this clear is important because she is our wind support. You could swap her out with Bulwark and it'd probably be fine. You would lose her damage, you'd lose the field. It wouldn't be quite as good of a swap, but you would gain Fairy Killer, which is something. Anyway, Nora and Dwayne are DPS. They also provide a lot of buffs for the party. See, the thing with Nora and Dwayne is they don't have personal damage per turn, but Dwayne's Arcane Supplementation is a really good buff for the party. It's an overcap buff, and then Nora is the modifier buff for the entire party. So even if their personal damage isn't great, just by being here on the party, they're buffing everyone else. Anyway, I'm going to get to the gear. So Abigail, we are not provoking. We do not want Abigail provoking. And because we're not provoking, we don't need evasion. So we did give her a lot of wind resist. So with Sylvie's buff, she's at basically wind immunity. All the magic damage is either wind or non-elemental. So high spirit, high wind resist. You can ignore dark resist. The dark is all physical. We never take it. So there we go. There's the gear. Blizzard Orb for a little bit of counter. And then there is the setup. And I gave her Melissa's card just for the morale fill. You can get this from the token shop, I think. Sylvie is our primary provoker. Passive provoke, full evasion, dual wielding a morale card. Honestly, morale is the hardest part of this clear, not using Melissa. Other than that, literally whatever. Who cares? Passive provoke evasion, nothing else really matters. Ibarra is using all our good Clash gear, so 15.7. There we go. She gears very, very easily, captain everything using her own card. Dwayne is 15.1. There we go. He's replaceable, honestly speaking. I am now realizing that I'm using Richt's gear. That could be replaced. Like, for example, this could be. This is not important. I actually meant to take this off. I was talking about this earlier. I meant to take this off and I didn't. Everlasting Fortune would be. There we go. There we go. You see, we're still maxed on attack power, and we still have the max LP damage with that. So that's what I meant to swap that out beforehand, and I forgot. But there we go. We don't need Richt's EX2 materia. Anyway, Nora is dual wield build, of course, obviously. 14.4. There we go. Maxed on everything. She gears a little bit harder here, but with Malphase's card, etc. She does max everything. I'm pretty sure. Max LB, max Fairy, max Demon, maxed on it all. And then Malphase, super easy gearing. Now Malphase is using passive provoke and evasion because again she can gear for this very easily. So we're using the Moonlit card, a lot of evasion gear, passive provoke. 'Cause she's our secondary provoker. So full LB damage, maxed Bird, Fairy, and Demon. And then as you can see here, max evasion, max provoke. We're getting that from, she has 50 naturally, and we're getting provoke from the provocation, and then maxed LB from falling and dodge roll, or maxed evasion from these two. Anyway, turn chart will be in the comments. We almost did 5 billion with a non-Elena clear. So, hope it helps. See you in a bit.